Both sides spent that first season getting ready to fight again. In Tenochtitlan, Cuauhtémoc, the new leader who took power after Montezuma's death, prepared the city for war. Orders spread through the nearby towns to block the roads, hold their food, and make every approach difficult. The plan was simple: wait for the enemy to come and make them pay for every step. Then sickness came from the coast. It spread along the same trade routes the armies used. People began to die in every town. On the island, rich and poor fell the same way. Work stopped, grain stayed in the fields. Guards stood their posts, but with fewer men each day. By the time the epidemic eased, the city was weaker, even without losing a battle. Meanwhile, in Tlaxcala, Cortés and his allies built their strength back up. They sent word to the nearby towns: stand with us now, or face Tenochtitlan alone later. Some agreed quickly, others waited or refused, and were left for later. Men who had once fought against Cortés now joined his ranks. The talk turned from gold to food, iron, and time. The goal was clear: return to the valley and stay there for good. To do that, they needed the road to the sea open again. Sandoval led the way. He cleared the passes, forced the hostile towns to choose sides, and built small posts to keep the roads safe. Soon, food, weapons, and news could travel between Veracruz and the highlands without delay. New bases at Tepeaca and other towns became supply centers where the army trained and gathered strength. Next came the key move: finding a safe place by the lake. The nearby city of Texcoco, once a proud ally of Tenochtitlan but now a rival, agreed to help. It was a large city on the eastern shore of the lake, only a short ride from the Aztec capital. Its leaders accepted Cortés's offer of protection in exchange for men and land for the army. That deal gave the allies a harbor, a camp, and ground close enough to watch the island directly. There, the army began building boats. The parts brought from the coast were joined into strong wooden ships. Local workers and Spanish carpenters built them side by side. Once finished, the boats were lowered into the lake. Their job was to protect the soldiers on land and to break the Aztec control of the water. When the boats went out for the first time, they moved slowly and with care. The men learned how far they could go, how to help each other when attacked, and how to strike fast and pull away before being surrounded. They burned small outposts, cut off traffic, and forced the island to defend in every direction. On land, 3 armies advanced along the main causeways. Each moved only as fast as it could hold what it gained. The boats stayed near to help when the roads crossed water. Orders were simple: move steady, stay close, and don't chase too far. The first real fight on the lake showed the plan could work. Canoes from Tenochtitlan rushed in from all sides, trying to trap the larger Spanish boats. The formation held. The heavy ships pushed through, fired once, and broke the circle. The victory lifted morale and showed that the island could be beaten even on its own water. But success brought mistakes. One army pushed too far and found the bridge behind it destroyed. Fire from rooftops pinned the soldiers in a narrow street with water at their backs. Nearby boats forced their way into the gap, took heavy fire, and helped the men escape. Other groups made similar errors, but learned quickly. Never move ahead of firm ground, never follow a lure, and never leave water uncovered behind you. After that, the army moved with care. They filled each gap before stepping forward. The boats stayed close enough to help at any moment, but never chased into dangerous shallows. Signals between shore and water were simple. A horn meant stop, a flag meant move. Supplies were planned day by day so the line would never run short. The fighting went on, but the city had less room each week. The Allied road from coast to lake stayed open. Every small gain added pressure. Bit by bit, the circle around Tenochtitlan closed. There was no single moment when the siege began. It started quietly, when the new plan held together and the enemy could no longer break it. From then on, the war turned one way, and everyone on both sides could see it. After the fleet and army joined, the plan became real. The goal was not to rush the island, but to squeeze it little by little until nothing could move in or out. Cortés placed each commander where he could do the most. Alvarado held the line from Tacuba, Olid from Coyoacán, and Sandoval from Iztapalapa. Each had his own road toward the city and his own group of boats guarding the canals beside him. Together, they formed a ring that began to close. At first, the attacks went fast. Columns pushed across the bridges and drove into the outer streets. But each time they advanced, the Mexica defenders pulled up the bridge behind them or opened a side canal. Arrows and stones rained down from rooftops. More than once, men were trapped in the narrow lanes and cut off from retreat. Losses grew, and the officers understood the truth. This city could not be taken by speed, so they changed how they fought. The new rule was simple: move only after the ground was made solid. Crews filled the canals with rubble and brush until the soldiers could stand on firm footing. Houses on the sides were cleared to stop ambushes from above. Every span gained was secured before the next step forward. It was slow, hard work, but it worked. Days began to look the same. Morning brought a short push forward. By afternoon, the men filled holes and dragged up small guns to hold the new line. At night, guards watched the edges, while wounded men were carried out by boat to the rear. The noise of battle never fully stopped. Somewhere across the water there was always the sound of a horn, a shout, or a single cannon firing in the dark. Inside Tenochtitlan, the strain began to show. The aqueducts were cut, and fresh water stopped. People drank from the lake and grew sick. Food ran short. Many of the same towns that once fed the capital were now part of the coalition against it. Hunger joined the illness that had never fully left since the first wave of disease. Refugees crowded the courtyards near the temples, and even the warriors could feel the weight of famine. The defenders fought back in new ways. They set sharp stakes under the water to catch the heavy boats. They threw nets to foul oars and rudders. At night, they sent fire canoes drifting with the wind, hoping to burn the fleet while it slept. But the Spanish and Tlaxcalan crews adapted. They kept lookouts in the bows, used lead lines to test the depth, and chained small guard boats to watch each canal mouth. After the first few raids, the surprise was gone. As the weeks passed, the army learned to fight as one machine. Flags, horns, and trumpet calls were made uniform, so everyone knew what each signal meant. When a bridge was ready to be crossed, the boats moved first to cover it. When the infantry needed help, a flag waved and the nearest ship came to flank the defenders. The link between land and water grew tighter until every move happened in rhythm. Keeping that system alive required order. Supplies came from Texcoco, Chalco, and Tlaxcala. Grain and powder arrived each day by boat and cart. Cortés punished looting to keep discipline, fixed rations for all, and counted porters to make sure nothing was wasted. Captured messengers were questioned for maps of canals and guard routes. Anything learned was marked down and passed to the next patrol. Piece by piece, the city was cut apart. Instead of trying to storm everything at once, each causeway and district was taken by turns. The army sealed one section, cleared it, and then moved to the next. By midsummer, the outer neighborhoods were gone or empty. All paths pointed toward Tlatelolco, the great market quarter that had become the last stronghold. The defenders knew it too. They tried to break out by canoe, but the brigantines blocked the exits. Every gap on the lake had a ship waiting. Every bridge that once led out of the city now ended at a wall of rubble and guns. The noise of drums from the temples was still loud, but fewer answered each call. Cortés gave one final order before the push into the center. Keep to the method, no rush, no loose pursuit, no victory claimed too soon. Behind the lines, the army leveled the empty ground it had already passed, so no enemy could slip back in at night. Around the northern exits, the fleet stretched into a wide net to stop any last escape. The men knew what came next. They were standing at the edge of the final fight for the city that had once ruled them all. By July, only the northern part of the island still held. Tlatelolco, once the great market of the Aztec world, had become a fortress. Cortés ordered all three columns to close in. Alvarado pressed from Tacuba, Olid from Coyoacán, and Sandoval from Iztapalapa. The brigantines spread across the lake to block every exit. No food, no help, no escape. The Allies moved slowly but surely. They filled canals, cleared houses, and built small bridges to cross each gap. Every evening the men camped where they stood, holding what they had gained that day. Behind them, piles of broken stone and wood marked the edge of what used to be neighborhoods. Ahead lay the center of the last resistance, the temple and the market of Tlatelolco. Inside the city, thousands of civilians crowded into the plaza. The great marketplace that once held 50,000 traders was now a maze of shelters and barricades. Families hid in temples and storehouses. The defenders fought from rooftops and canals with what they had left: stones, spears, and broken weapons. Every house became a wall. Every canal became a trap. When the fighting reached the market, it turned into one of the hardest days of the entire war. Spanish and Tlaxcalan soldiers advanced by streets that no longer looked like streets, only rubble, smoke, and water. Canoes from Tenochtitlan tried to rush in through side canals, but the brigantines caught them at the edges. For hours, the battle swung back and forth through the same square. By nightfall, hundreds lay dead on both sides, and the plaza that had once been the heart of trade was covered with bodies and debris. The next days brought the slow collapse. Water was gone, food was gone, and even the strongest warriors were starving. Disease and hunger filled the temples and courtyards. Some tried to surrender, but others fought on, refusing to believe the city could fall. Drums still sounded from the main temple, but fewer answered the beat each day. Cortés sent messengers offering peace if they laid down arms. None returned. The answer came instead as showers of arrows and stones. So the advance began again, slower than before, but steady. Each bridge and canal was taken and guarded. Each span was filled and leveled before the next move. The net was closing, one block at a time. To the north, the brigantines circled like watchdogs, sealing the last water routes. They burned the canoe yards and smashed the piers where food might land. At night, lookouts kept lamps covered and challenged anything that moved. Nothing passed without a signal or a horn. The island was now completely trapped. Then came the final order: push straight into Tlatelolco and end it. Cortés rode between the three fronts to make sure all began together. Trumpets sounded, guns opened. Rows of men moved forward behind their shields, stepping over the fills they had made with their own hands. The brigantines struck from both sides, firing on the flanks and ramming any canoe that tried to break through. The defenders fought with everything left. Men, women, and boys stood together on the terraces, throwing stones until the soldiers climbed the steps. Each temple was taken by storm, cleared, and left burning. In the end, resistance broke into small groups that fought from corners and courtyards. When the Spaniards reached the Great Square, the noise of battle began to fade. What had been an empire's capital was now smoke, ruin, and silence. In the confusion, Cuauhtémoc, the young ruler of Tenochtitlan, tried to escape by canoe with a few close followers. He carried the royal banner and some of the last treasures of the city. But the brigantines were already sweeping the northern water. Captain Garcia Holguin spotted the small royal boat moving fast and ordered pursuit. His ship drew alongside and fired a single shot across the bow. The canoe stopped. Cuauhtémoc stood and gave himself up, saying only, "I have done all I could for my people. Now take me to your captain." He was brought to Cortés under guard. The war was over the moment word spread that the ruler had been captured. Fighting stopped almost at once. Small groups came out from hiding and dropped their weapons. The rest were too weak to continue. By sunset, no organized defense remained. Cortés entered the city the next morning. He ordered guards on the canals, food brought for the survivors, and fires put out. Cuauhtémoc was treated with formality, not triumph. Both men knew what had been lost. The soldiers gathered in the ruined plaza, surrounded by smoke, silence, and the smell of the lake. The empire of the Mexica had ended. Only ashes, hunger, and the sound of the wind over the water remained. And so the long struggle for Tenochtitlan ended where it had begun, at the heart of the island, under a grey sky, on the day that changed the world.